This is short, but we've questioned it for 9 years now. My best friend and I were driving to Florida to go to Disney for her 21st birthday. At the time, I didn't drive, so it was all her. We were on a road in North Carolina at around 10 p.m., and then suddenly we were in South Carolina, and it was 3 hours later. Neither of us remember anything about those 3 hours. She doesn't remember driving. We don't remember seeing the sign for South Carolina either, which we kept looking for all the state signs to text our parents to say when we made it to the next state. We were both still living at home at the time, and it was the first time either of us had been on a vacation without our families. I don't know if we both fell asleep, but somehow she stayed driving and nobody got hurt, but that just seems so unlikely. Highway hypnosis? I'll try to explain this the best I can. It sounds inexplicable. This has never made sense to me, and I think about it on occasion because I could never figure it out. It happened about 10 years ago. I don't want to say where I actually was, but it is a Midwestern town. It bothers me because it doesn't make sense. I was driving through a city of about 200,000 people, and my parents live there, and the exit to get to their house was the last one before you left the city, driving east to west. I missed the exit and didn't want to swerve at the last minute because there was traffic on the interstate, but then I left the city, and anyone who lives in a Midwestern town knows that once you get past the last exit, you can go for miles before you even get a place you can drive off on. So I basically figured I'd just keep driving until I finally found a road to get off on and turn around. Anyway, I just kept driving. Then I saw those big interstate signs you see above you, but they were all rusted, without the signs, just the posts. I thought maybe it was due to road construction. I thought maybe I had missed a detour, but at this point I was paying attention because I needed to get around and turn back. But there weren't any places to turn around, so I just kept driving. It didn't make any sense because there weren't lights anymore, and the road was getting worn out like it hadn't been paved in years. Then there were trees, like lots of pine trees. It didn't make sense. I was kinda starting to panic because I didn't know where I was. I was sure that I didn't take a different route. The road started to get really old-looking, and the trees were dense, which didn't make sense because this is a place with few trees. I slowed down because I was honestly scared and confused as to where I actually was. I then saw some of those black and white roadblock signs just blocking the road. It didn't make sense. Why would they be in the middle of the damn highway? They were just sitting there blocking the actual interstate. I thought maybe I had gotten off the interstate, so I stopped in the middle of the road, thinking, okay, I'll just turn around. So I crossed the median and started to drive back. I felt lost, but I drove on the road, and without any turns, I came back and was on the damn same interstate. I don't get it. I turned off the exit and drove right to my parents' house. I was always on the same road. I never turned off except for the exit. I asked my parents if there was some kind of road construction going on. They said not that they know of. I was very confused and really worried. I was so bothered. I kept thinking about how I was probably so aloof that it was just a mistake, and I probably drove off in a different direction. When I left to go home a couple days later, I wanted to make sure. So I went back on the exact same interstate and drove on the exact same direction, and it was fine. There were no roadblocks, no trees, no nothing. I never turned off. I was always driving on the exact same road. That interstate was not the same place. I don't know, it bothers me to this day. I guess I wanted someone else's opinion as to what might have happened. And P.S., I have no mental illnesses, I don't do drugs, and I don't drink and drive. I had a pretty bizarre experience with my roommate. Let's call her Morgan. Morgan had just started rush week, which includes lots of late-night drinking and partying. She started coming back to the dorms really late and would wake me up because I'm a very light sleeper. One night, Morgan comes in around 3 a.m. and she has had way too much to drink. She is slurring her speech and barely walking straight. I've never seen her so drunk. I turn on the bedroom lights just as she throws up in the middle of the room. I get her some water, help her to the bathroom, and finally get her to bed. I use towels to absorb the vomit since the smell is so overwhelming. Eventually, I get back to bed close to 4 a.m., which sucked because I have class at 8 a.m., but Morgan doesn't have class, so I thought, good for her, she can sleep off the hangover. I wake up at 7 a.m., and Morgan is not there. Her bed is perfectly made, but the vomit left a bit of a stain in the rug. I thought that maybe she managed to get up and get some breakfast, but it was weird that she had already made her bed. Anyways, I go to the kitchen to make myself breakfast, and she is nowhere in the apartment. As I'm about to leave for class, Morgan walks through the front door with 2 other sorority girls. They are making a ruckus talking about how they spend all night partying. She apologizes to me for not coming back to the dorms and hopes that I wasn't too worried that she didn't come back all night. I was flabbergasted and kind of pissed. I thought she was playing a prank. I told her, "What in the world are you talking about? You came home last night in a drunken mess, you threw up, I took care of you and put you to sleep." She and the other 2 girls were adamant that Morgan never came back to the dorms. I showed her the vomit stain and the towels I used to clean up the vomit that she needs to wash herself for making such a mess. They denied everything, even showed me a shitty cell phone video of them partying around 4 a.m. I had spent the previous night studying. I did not consume any alcohol or drugs. I went to bed around 11 a.m., and I swear that the girl that came into my dorm that night was Morgan. But she pretty much had an alibi that it wasn't her. Our university was very strict about room keys, and we each had exactly 1 key card to come into our apartment. If it wasn't Morgan, who in the world was able to come inside the apartment, who looked, behaved, and talked just like her? I had no idea how this could have happened. Unfortunately, this event put a huge stain on our friendship as we each stuck to our own stories. We were both too grossed out to clean up the vomit towels, so we just threw them away. Morgan ended up moving into a sorority house, and I eventually moved back in with my parents to save money, and the vomit stain never disappeared. About a year ago, I was putting gas in my car when I heard and felt concussion in my chest from an explosion. The sound was deafening, and the shockwave hit me in the chest and made me stumble back a bit. I gather myself for a moment and look around at other pumps, and nobody else seems to have even heard this loud-ass explosion. Every pump at the gas station was full, and people were out front talking and things. But nobody but me seemed to have acknowledged what had just happened. I honestly think that gas pump blew the fuck up while I was beside it, and I just immediately came into another consciousness or reality. I honestly don't know what happened that day, but I was freaked out about it for a few days afterwards, and that's when I stumbled upon the quantum immortality theory. I shit you not, there was something in my backyard last night, and I was not happy about it. I need to get this off my chest somehow because I don't know what it meant and it keeps bothering me. Late last night, around 11 p.m., South Texas, I was walking past the double French doors that lead to the backyard. I'd forgotten to turn on the backyard light, as usual, and so I approached the light switch just to the right of the doors. I stood for a moment, getting the sensation that something, or maybe even someone, was lurking about on the back porch. I'd had my fair share of the same impression before, only to find a possum or whatever once I'd turned the back porch light on, except this time it felt different. Something felt off. I turned the porch light on, but didn't see anything right away, just some of my husband's tools that he'd left out from when we rehung the back fence a few nights ago. I went to the kitchen to grab some food, then walked back towards the living room and glanced out the backyard doors again. There was a silver/yellow thing far in the back near the new fence, where an old tree stump used to be. It looked like it was glowing. I stood there, confused. At first I thought maybe it was the reflective lights on one of the bikes that was hung up on the shed, but what I was looking at was well below the bottom wheel of the largest bike, almost as if it was crouched down. And then, whatever it was, turned its head towards the back of the house. I'd been looking at a profile view of it. With the light from the back porch, I distinctly saw eyeshine of 2 eyes, a long, pointed snout and pointed ears. This thing, for all intents and purposes, looked like a large black dog about the size of a large German shepherd, except it was blacker than black. And I realized, with a sinking feeling in my gut, that I could not see the back gate because there was a thick black mist around this thing. I felt afraid. One of the first things my brain went to was, werewolf. Wait, no, this thing is much smaller. What is it? Looks like a dog. I know we tend to have stray dogs in our neighborhood, so I yelled to my husband, who was sitting on the couch at this point, "There's something in the backyard." I ran for the bedroom where I had my 32-pound recurve bow. We're an archery family, since they're quieter than guns, so I grabbed the one thing I knew could give me range. We presently have a problem with large and aggressive dogs in our neighborhood that have been documented killing cats and assaulting joggers, so yes, I armed myself because I wasn't going to take any chances. My husband stayed by the back door looking for the thing. I was gone for about 30 seconds. He said he didn't see anything, but understood that I wouldn't have strung my bow unless I meant business. He's not as sensitive to vibes and spooks as I am, and he knows it. Rarely he'll sense something that doesn't feel right when we are looking at houses. When I got back to the door, my husband opened it, and I stepped out with my bow drawn. I know that sounds absolutely crazy, like something out of a movie, but it was all I had to work with. I called out loudly, "Who's there?" and aimed my arrow where I had seen the thing last. I am a decent shot with my bow, but not the best, but all I had to aim at was this thick black mist where the creature was before. I still couldn't see the back gate for the mist. Bear in mind, our neighbor to the west of us has a yard that normally has a light that spills into the back corner of our yard near the back gate, and even with that light, the mist was so thick I couldn't even see the tall grass in the area. I remember calling out into the night, "Whoever you are, you need to leave now. I'm armed and prepared to shoot." And to my horror, this black mist suddenly bounded up over the back gate, which is about 6.5 feet high, and disappeared as if it were being sucked out of the yard. All of a sudden, I could see the back gate again, and the ground, and everything else that I normally can see at night, with our back porch light and the neighbor's yard light. The thing was gone. In my mind, I was trying to piece together what I had seen, and the first word that jumped into my head was black shuck. But it gets weirder. I was aware of the black shuck being a creature from folklore because I have a casual interest in that sort of thing, but I also knew that seeing one wasn't exactly the best of news. I messaged a close uncle of mine, and he said he'd seen something similar run through his yard the night before, and he lives halfway across the country. He said one of his kids also saw something similar too, except in the daytime. I still have my bow strung. I realized that we recently moved the fence back to the property line. It's a privacy fence, so perhaps whatever it was used to sleeping behind the back gate at night. Still, it had no business lurking in my yard. I hope I didn't offend it by pointing an arrow at it. I just wanted to stay away and not bring ill to my family. Edit. I know Black Shuck is more of a British Isles sort of creature, and I'm in Texas, but I don't know what else to call it. If anyone can enlighten me, that would be great. Also, I'm a quarter Native American, Kickapoo, but I have a lot of Northern European roots, including British. Has anybody seen any weird serpent-like creature/animals near the Gulf Coast? I was walking down a preserve with my mom and dog. I stopped to give my dog water, was facing backwards when all of a sudden my mom asks, "Who is that?" and stops me with her arm. I, of course, turn, because we are near the exit of the trail and the only person we saw was an old guy biking around, so curiously I quickly whip around. The second I do, this fucking thing, I don't even know how to properly describe it. The closest thing I can think of in terms of shape is the Beetlejuice snake monster, but it most definitely was not a snake. This thing was matte, pitch black color and had almost a head-like shape, hence why my mom thought it was a person. But no eyes, pores, or anything I could discern. Mind you, it was maybe 8 to 10 feet from us. As I face it and start to process what my eyes are seeing, it noticed my movement and slithers in the air. I couldn't see if it was hanging in the air or if it was on land. It came from the trees to our left. Its head, if you could call it that, again, it had no eyes or mouth or anything, scanned me up and down and moved towards me a bit. It felt sentient, although I don't know how it saw me or with what. Then it all of a sudden whips its body back towards the trees and disappeared. This preserve trail is surrounded by water, yet we heard no splash or any sounds. It was fucking massive. We have no snakes like that here, and again, it was no fucking snake. Impossible with how it moved. The body was so long and thick. Also, I don't know how it would support itself in the air, since all we saw was a massive floating serpent-like form. That was halfway across the width of the trail, several feet up, taller than me, and I'm 5'4", and then it was gone in a flash. My dog, a pit bull, miraculously wasn't even paying attention. I have no clue what would have happened if he had spotted the thing. My mom wanted to head back in the opposite direction of the trail, which is like 3 miles, but I told her, fuck that. We're at the end. Our best bet is running past it, then it's surprising us at any point for the rest of it. As we run past the spot we saw it, my fucking dog stops. I'm of course freaked, but I have to look to make sure it doesn't jump at me, and literally nothing is there. I have no idea where it went or how it did so silently with the fucking size of the thing. If I hadn't been with my mom, I wouldn't believe myself. I'm literally shaking thinking about it. This has haunted us for so long. Please, if you have any idea of what it might be, let me know. This was formerly Calusa territory, so I wonder if there's prehistoric information on this creature, or if anybody else has seen it. Me and my pregnant wife were staying at my parents' house in northwest Tennessee on September 17th, 2021. It is about 50 yards from our new house. I went out on their back patio to smoke a cigarette around 12 a.m. Over the fence I heard something that sounds like it was choking on something, but at the same time it sounded like a distorted pig squealing. It would make sounds in about 2 to 3 second spurts. I honestly thought it was a hawk or owl, anything that could be explained. I thought it was definitely weird, but probably natural. About 3 hours later, I couldn't sleep and decided I would go to the gym. As I'm walking to my car across the yard and towards the road, I hear the same weird sound coming from about 50 yards away at my 10 o'clock direction. I looked around and I couldn't see anything or hear anything. Then I hear, "Hey! Hey!" in a woman's voice coming from the same direction. So I looked back up and there was nothing there. As I'm scanning the yard, I hear that loud squealing noise again. I got in my car and dipped as fast as possible. I thought it was weird, but didn't give it a second thought until a month later I was on TikTok and saw a video of a man riding a horse in Arizona, I believe. And in the video, I heard a woman say, "Hey, hey!" This makes him and the horse both freak out and run away. It was believed to be a skinwalker. When I heard that same voice and those same words, almost like a recording, my heart sank to my stomach. I really don't believe in any of this, and I've tried every way I can to disprove it, and truly I can't. It doesn't scare me as much anymore as it intrigues me. I'm so curious to know what that was and why me. I've never really believed in this stuff, to be honest, and I still don't know if what I heard was a skinwalker or a goat or a person, but it still freaks me out. So my family lives on about 5 acres of land. To our left, we have neighbors who live on a hill on about 10 acres, and to our right, there is a huge barn where a guy who owns a big construction company stores some of his equipment. The barn is probably a good 90 yards away from my family's house, and there are no streetlights or lights at all in between my house and the barn. So when this barn first got built, I was about 15 and my little brother was 13. His name is Bryce. We were both pretty interested in it because it was huge and at the time completely empty. So with no plan, we decided it would be a good idea to just go check it out at 3 in the morning. It was a terrible idea. We walked down to the barn with our great Pyrenees, who is an absolute unit. Her name is Piper. The walk to the barn wasn't scary, and we made it out there without anything weird happening. The barn is lit all around it, so you can see everything around it from about a 20-foot radius. So me and Bryce are just walking around, and we brought a football and are tossing it around and having fun. I remember shutting Bryce in the porta-potty and not letting him out and just having a good time. After about 7 minutes or so, me and Bryce are both at the front of the barn on the gravel path just talking, and we hear a noise pretty far off in the distance. It was a very strange and weird noise, though, like a girl saying, "Hey," but very strangely. Me and Bryce both stop talking and look in the direction of the noise. I wasn't really scared at this time. It was a high-pitched noise, and it didn't sound like it came from something menacing. It was pretty far away, too. So it's completely silent now, and me and Bryce are just looking into a dark abyss. 30 seconds later, the noise is about 10 yards away. I mean, it was right outside of the lit-up part of the land, so we couldn't see it, but it was right there. It sounded like a woman yelling, "Hey!" in a panic, but it also didn't sound human. It was absolutely terrifying. I turned around and booked it, yelling, "Holy shit, holy fuck," and just absolutely surged with adrenaline, and so was Bryce. It was absolutely the fastest I've ever ran in my life. As I'm running, I hear the "Hey!" 2 more times. I looked back, but there was nothing in the lit-up area. I have no fucking clue what it was. Probably not a skinwalker, but I thought it kind of fit this subreddit, and it's an interesting story. A couple months ago, me and my sister were sitting in the living room, and we heard my dad's voice say his own name from outside. My dad was on a trip, and I thought I was just hearing things until my sister mentioned it too. A week or 2 later, me and my friend slept in a tent outside. Around midnight, we heard some pretty loud footsteps coming from not too far away. We tried to stay as silent as possible. It moved very slowly and probably took around 40 minutes to get even past our tent. Every time we made any noise in the tent, the footsteps would stop for a minute or two. We live right beside a forest as well. It was probably just a bear or something, but I don't know, it was kind of creepy for me. I live in Canada. Hello, little Vickies. Thanks so much for listening. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you heard, please subscribe if you haven't already, hit the like button, and leave a comment, as it's all very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. I've hit 100 subscribers and I'm very excited about it, so thank you so much for all of you who've subscribed. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as well as other ways to support the channel if you're so inclined. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it more than I can ever say. And until next time, be good.